Good morning, garden friends. I'm sitting here in front of the pond on what is right now a cool uh, early August morning. It's going to be hot today, so I'm up early with the birds and the chickens to make sure I get a head start on the day before the heat drives me inside. So in today's video, I wanted to give you an update on the pond and what's been going on there, or should I say, what hasn't been going on there, and kind of have a moment to admit that I took on too much this summer. And yeah, and that's difficult for me to admit. Anyway, so yeah, this summer I had all sorts of plans for the pond garden and redoing the kitchen view garden, barn slope, adding the new barn slope garden along the barn, as well as redoing the pollinator garden, which is all infested with all kinds of weeds, and maintaining a vegetable garden. Yeah, that's not going to happen this year. And it took me until probably the last week or so to admit it. Now, since the last video, I've been working hard on the barn slope garden and adding some new plants and getting things mulched and all that. And then realized that I had done nothing on the pond garden really most of the summer because I was busy behind the house up by the barn. And in the meantime, and you can kind of see it behind me, in the meantime, this whole space is filled in with weeds, even though it doesn't have much in the way of topsoil, which is odd. But anyway, so this past week, my husband and I have been working on a few things here, and we've decided we've got to focus on the pond for the remainder of the summer, mainly because I've got a whole pile of plants up here on the greenhouse pad that I purchased earlier in the season when stocks at the nurseries were good. Um, and they're still in their pots, and they've got to get into the ground before winter. And it's August, which for most parts of the country is still the middle of summer. But here in New England, in New Hampshire, August really starts the descent into fall. And pretty soon, the nights are going to start getting cooler. And, next thing you know, we'll be into October and having our first frosts. So I want to get all these plants into the ground and established before winter comes so that they have a chance to get their roots into the soil and settle in before the real cold weather starts. So the next couple of weeks, it'll be all pond all the time. And unfortunately, some other things are going to have to drop off the list. And one of the first things I decided that was going to go this year was the vegetable garden. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm going to just plow it all under and say, that's it. But what I've decided is that I haven't done any succession planting, which I normally keep a succession of greens going all summer, as well as additional plantings of carrots and beets and the like. This year, I just haven't been able to do that, and it drives me crazy. And I beat myself up over it. I've spent the last 8 years growing a low level commercial level for a farmer's market and a couple of small stores selling vegetables. And to switch that off has been challenging. So basically, I'm just going to stop where I am. I've got crops in the ground, potatoes and beans and a few other things, and I'll carry those through the season, but I'm not going to be adding any more vegetables. The other thing that's going to drop off the radar for a little while is the pollinator border that is overgrown with weeds and really needs a redo. Just not going to get it done right now. And that's okay. That's okay. I can probably work on that later in the season, even after frost. can pull things out and weed and clean it up. But the full scale renovation of that pollinator border is going to have to wait. And again, that's okay. It's not going anywhere. It'll be there next spring. So, yeah. So we're going to be focusing on the pond garden and then finishing up what I've started on the barn slope and the kitchen view garden, and making sure that's all tucked away and set for the winter in terms of exposed soil and erosion and that sort of thing. Getting plant material in there to protect the soil for the winter. So it's all good. It's all good. It's just a readjustment of my expectations for the year, and yeah, I think I'm okay with it. I think I've finally come to realize that not all of this has to get done today. I seem to have, I don't know, got myself into a rush to get everything done. And I'm not sure where that external or internal pressure is coming from. But I've always said, I've always had kind of in the back of my mind um, a quote from Joel Salatin, and I'm going to murder the quote, so I'll just paraphrase it. But basically, that the joy in your property is not in the final product; it's in the process of getting to that final product. And I have to keep reminding myself of that, all the work that we do in this pond and all the work that I've done in the other gardens, that's part of the joy of having this property. And that eventually I will get to the ultimate product, which is a finished pond garden. But I need to stop and enjoy the process of getting there. And yeah, and understand that I can't do all of the processes at the same time. So yeah, it's all good. I'm just refocusing and realizing that I need to, be kinder to myself and enjoy the process of getting this pond ready, and knowing that I will get it there, wherever there is. I will get it there at some point. So yeah. So this video isn't meant to be depressing or sad. There is actually some fun stuff here in this video, and I'm going to show it to you in a second. We have done a little bit of work on the pond in the last couple of days, and mostly moving some rocks and pulling weeds. But there is a huge amount of life in the pond, despite my neglect, and it's very exciting, and I want to show you that. So let's take a look. The first thing you might notice, if you've watched the progress of this pond, is that there's actually green stuff growing in it. I've added a bunch of different plants in here in an attempt to cover some of the surface, and also add oxygenators to the pond to help keep the water clear. And they finally started taking off. And so I want to show you a few of these. This green mat that has just exploded along the side of the pond here. I'll try to focus in a little bit. This is called frogbit, and it does seem to be like it has the potential to be fairly invasive, but I like it because it is covering a large amount of the water and giving the amphibious residents quite a few places to hide. And actually, I will focus in on one of them. They are all over, but we are loaded with frogs. Frogs everywhere. Let's see if I can focus in on this little guy here. I don't know if you can see him. Hello, Froggy. Actually, there's another one right there. We have dozens of frogs in this pond now, which is exactly what I wanted. Over here, toward the waterfall, buried in the frog bit, which is a bit of a problem, and I'm going to address that hopefully soon. I do have a water lily. It is white. It's currently not blooming, although there are several several buds that are about ready to open, and they may open today as the day warms up. Oop, there's a frog right there talking to me this morning. Anyway, so water lily there that's submerged, and the way that the currents are in this pond because of the aerator and the waterfall, frog bit has been pushed all to this side of the pond, and that's where I had put the water lily. I'm actually going to be picking that up once my waders come in that I've ordered. I'm going to be picking that up and moving it over to this side of the pond, so that it can be free to spread and not get enveloped by this frog bit. I love it. I'll take you back around on the other side of the pond and show you a few other plants. I did buy a couple of water hyacinths this year. Now, these are not going to be hardy here. They will die with the first, when the pond freezes. And look, if you look closely, you'll see even more frogs hanging out in the water hyacinths. Now, these did bloom a little while ago. I'm not sure that they're going to bloom again, but I thought they would be a helpful addition to the pond. And then over here, I've got some iris. And those will have purple flowers, and those will bloom, I'd say probably like late spring, early summer. Now, you can't see at the bottom, but I do have some hornwort that has sunk to the bottom, and that is a great oxygenator plant that'll help keep the water clear. And actually, since these plants have all started growing very well, the water has definitely cleared up quite a bit. I am still adding a little bit of pond dye to the pond, just to keep the sunlight, you cut the sunlight down, and try to keep this pond clear and keep the algae down. And so far, it seems to be working. Standing back here at the far end of the pond, looking back toward the house, you can see the main drainage channel from the bog garden. We've done a little bit of work on that, and so I'll walk over that way and show you that. We'll walk through the weeds. So many weeds, mostly sedges, which is concerning because sedges can be difficult to get rid of. This right here is one of the drainage rills that I had to dig in the spring to direct the water that was flowing out of this wall into the pond. And I've almost finished lining the edges with rocks and then filling the middle with this gravel. And the pond liner that is lining it will be covered up by soil as I bring the garden beds closer to this rill. We did have power added to the pond. And here's the weeping birch. It seems to be doing okay. It is still really the only officially planted shrub in the garden. So it seems to have held its own through the summer. There's Mr. Frog. So here's the main drainage channel for the pond that leads into the bog garden. And we finished lining it and lining it with rocks and filling it with gravel. And then I've added a bunch of different plants. Iris, the native iris, I'll put the name down below. And then over here we have cattails. And again, I'll put the name on the screen below because I can't remember it right now. And then equisetum. Now this, I'm going to step down in the pond into the bog here. This is one of my botany nerd bucket list plants. I love this stuff. This equisetum was around in the time of the dinosaurs, and I just find it to be the most beautiful and fascinating plant. I won't go all botany nerd on you, but I'm so happy to have this here. And it's going to spread, and it may become somewhat invasive, but I don't care. I'm happy with it there. So this bog will eventually, I hope, become filled in with the equisetum and the cattails and the irises, which will help absorb the water in the springtime. We did a bit of work here in the corner, cleaning up the rocks and filling in. I did put a liner under this pile of rocks here. There is a bit of dirt there, and it was becoming quite weedy. I'm going to leave the ferns that have popped up in the pockets of this wall and possibly add more. So this corner here is right below the carport. The plan is, now that we've replaced the roof on this part of the house, we're going to add gutters on the back of the house. And I will explain at some point why that matters to the back of the house. But anyway, the gutters are going to come out at this end here. And the plan is to run the outlet for the gutters sort of diagonally down across this face of the carport and have it dump right here. And so what that means is after a heavy rainfall, back up here without tripping, after a heavy rainfall, there should be a huge amount of water that comes down in here, bounces off the rocks, and pours into the bog garden. And here it can, build up and then eventually trickle into the pond. But yeah, it's a good way for us to redirect the rainwater that would normally pile up behind the house into something, a little more useful and decorative. And also we'll be able to eventually, I hope, set up some rain barrels up on that corner where that black tray is propped up against the carport, so that we can start collecting the rainwater as well when we want to, for the garden. Give you another view of the rock work here. I do plan to fill in this lighter dirt with a bunch of rocks. We have a ton of smaller rocks all throughout this space. So I want to line this with the smaller rocks. I've started over here. But as we work on the beds and clear the beds, I just pick up the rocks and throw them in here. And that's just to keep the soil down and keep some of the weeds down. I will probably have to weed again in here, but eventually the weed seed load, I'm hoping, will be much less. And I've got a little bit of rock work to do over here, but slowly making progress. Panning back over the rest of this garden bed, what will be garden bed. Here's where the patio is going to go. And you can see we've been digging out rocks. My husband actually dug out from this little spot here dug out all these rocks the other day, and then we spent way too much time trying to dig this bad boy out. And as you can see, it's still there. So we're going to come back at it and see if we can get it out of this hole. Otherwise, it may end up just becoming a feature in what will be a garden bed right here. I did manage to finally put together a somewhat detailed plan of what I plan to do with this pond garden in terms of planting and pathways and such. So let me take a moment to show you that. This is a photo I took of the pond using a drone. So it's overhead, looking down on the pond. And as you can see, here's the pond. And here's the big drainage ditch and the bog garden, and then the big stone walls all around. So I took this photo, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it in this picture, but right about here is a white line in the picture. That is actually a measuring tape set at 10 feet. So I put that down by the pond before I took the drone up so that I would have a measurement for scale. So then I took this photo, and over top of it, I took a piece of tracing paper and drew in the garden that I want to hopefully put in the next couple of months. I'll zoom in a little bit here, and we can take a closer look at what I've drawn here. So we have the pond, and the first thing I definitely I wanted to put in was a gravel path around the pond. And it will most of the time stay away from the pond and allow for planting beds up against the pond here and over here. But right over here, it does bump right up against the rocks of the pond. So this gravel pathway, I've roughly drawn it in at about a 3-foot width. It'll go all the way around the pond, and it crosses over the big rock bridge at one end and crosses over the smaller rock bridge at the other end. There will actually be a third rock bridge installed over this drainage rill that comes from the east wall. So that'll all be rocked in here, and then we have a nice flat rock that we're eyeing for the bridge there. So you'll be able to walk entirely around the pond and view all the things that need to be viewed. And there'll be garden beds up against it that'll have some interesting plantings. The entrance to the pond garden, I decided that I really wanted to keep this somewhat of a secluded area that you don't see all at once when you walk up to it, that you have to discover it as you walk in. So I'm only allowing one entrance at this point. And so what I'm planning on doing is planting some sort of shrub hedge here up against the west wall that will kind of block your view as you come down the driveway down the hill. You won't be able to see the pond immediately until you get to about here. Further up, I also plan to do the same hedging material here on the other end of the pond on the east wall as this is the driveway into the pasture. So there'll be another hedge blocking entrance from this side. The other reason I'm doing this as well is to keep deer out of this garden, or at least make it more difficult for deer to get into this garden. So that's part of the reason why I want to do hedging. And then for this space, I haven't quite determined what I'm going to do yet. Probably hedging, but maybe another mixed border of higher, taller shrubs that deer don't like, and that also sort of block the view of the pond, so that you discover it as you come into the walkway. So turning toward the western wall of the pond garden And in the photo, the drone photo I took, I didn't, it's a little bit off. I didn't get the whole wall, but you'll get the general idea. There is this little jut of wall that we think actually this used to be potentially a ramp out of the old barn that was here on this foundation. It's sloped gently, and yeah, so anyway, so in this corner here that's created by this wall, which this is south facing, or yeah, facing south this way, and then this is the western wall. I'm going to build a patio. We're probably going to use some sort of stone material on top. Haven't decided exactly what, whether it be pavers or actual stone, like a sandstone or a bluestone. Still specking that out yet, but it'll be roughly 8 feet or so deep, and then however deep I kind of determine. Right now it's roughly like 12 feet deep or so, 12 feet wide. But yeah, so that'll be in this corner. This corner gets a little bit of shade in the afternoon because of these two walls, and I may at some future date throw up some sort of canopy over this corner so that it'll be a nice shaded area. The rest of the garden sits in full sun most of the day, so this will be a nice little shady area that we can sit in and admire the rest of the pond. Turning toward plantings, well, actually, let me talk to you about these little blobs here. I have a formal gravel path going all the way around the pond, but I'd like to have some less formal pathways to be able to access different parts of the bed. And so I envision some sort of stepping stone pathway that will lead you to the bog on this side and also lead you to the patio through planted garden areas. And then on this side, the same thing, some sort of wandering stepping stone path that'll go over the drainage rill and lead you to the old granite stairs that take you up and out of the pond garden in the back way up by the greenhouse. The location of this is still to be determined, and will likely move from, where I'm depicting it on this map, but just to give you a general idea. Turning to actual plantings now, the big main planting bed in the back here is going to be filled with all kinds of water-loving plants that don't mind being wet. And that means a lot of willows, actually. And I've sourced a number of really cool willow plants to put in here. The first one being a weeping pussy willow. It's just gorgeous. I have it up on, all these plants are up on the greenhouse pad. So I'm going to put a weeping pussy willow here. In this corner, I've got a nice Arctic willow, which has sort of a bluish cast to it. In here, I'm going to put a grouping of yellow willow, the same willow that I used or got in the rainbow willow hedge I planted last year. I'm going to take cuttings of that and put it in here and keep the whole collection of them coppiced so they stay fairly low. In here, I've got a sage leaf willow, which has beautiful gray, sagey looking leaves. I'll show that to you once it gets planted. And then over here, a black cat pussy willow. And then interspersed, I've already got a high bush cranberry shrub right there. Interspersed, I've got some other water-loving plants. So I've got a bank of Joe Pye weed. I also have some ironweed that I may put in here. I haven't quite decided where yet. I've got several summer sweet, a ruby spice summer sweet, a little Henry summer sweet, and then, let's see, somewhere down here, here we go. I have a Sugartina summer sweet up along this western wall, along with some button bushes that I got through the New Hampshire forest sale that I've talked about before. And I may use more. I've got a lot of them. I've also got some, I've got a spice bush, and then a switchgrass and I don't have the name. I'll put that on the screen. It's a really beautiful green with red highlights. It's so pretty. And then interspersed in here, this is the weeping birch that is already planted next to the Lion King rock. I'm going to probably do some plantings of Siberian iris. I've actually got lots of Siberian iris, so I'm going to cluster it in plantings in strategic spots that, like especially here where I know water is going to want to flow down into this drainage ditch, and the Siberian iris will help block that flow or slow it down. So I'm going to do clumps of Siberian irises in here. And then what else do I have here? I know I have something else. Oh yes, the bog. So here at the bog, I've already planted, and I showed you, or we'll show you this shortly. I've planted some equisetum, some blue flag iris, and some cattails. So that will be allowed to sort of fill in. So that's the garden plan as it is right now. It will probably change and evolve as I get plants in and placed, but that gives you a good idea of where I'm going with this garden. Well, the sun is up and I'm starting to squint, so it's time for me to end this video. Thank you for joining me on this update. All is good. I'm excited to get back to work on this pond and, have a little bit of renewed focus and energy, and hope to really be able to show you some progress in the coming weeks on this project. I do also plan to have a couple of videos up in the near future on a number of topics, including the chickens. You might be able to hear them squawking in the background. They're doing their egg-laying squawks right now. Anyway, so I haven't done a chicken video in a while. I need to do one and update you on what's been happening with our flock, as well as the meat chickens that we now have on pasture. Haven't done any chicken videos in a while, so I hope to have one of those out pretty soon to let you know what's going on with those. And I do have another video planned in the next week, an update video on the shade garden and such, as well as a pretty significant announcement, I think. Teaser. Anyway, so stay tuned for that. And I do appreciate that you're here and watching this video. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and maybe give a video a like if something appeals to you, or comment. I'd love to hear your comments. All of that helps my channel, and I do really appreciate that you're watching this. So I will see you in the next video. Take care. And wow, those chickens are loud. I don't know what just happened, but the entire flock is out squawking at me right now. I don't know if you can hear it because I have a mic on, but anyway. We'll see you in the next video. Bye.